Arkanoid is one of those games that will always be remembered throughout the history of video games. While it has largely remained unchallenged and unchanged, with few developers even attempting to create such a game, there has been a small few. The most notable of these is Reflexive Entertainment, who in the 2000s created an at the time modern take on Arkanoid with their Ricochet series. And while indeed it was a very welcome step forward that gave a temporary revival to the Brick Breaker, it didn't do much to change up the formula. The game we're looking at today, however, is of a developer who has stepped up, hoping to bring a completely new spin on the Brick Breaker format, and what a success it has been. Beautiful Bricks is a 1 to 4 player brick breaking game with a modern twist consisting of roguelike elements. It is developed and published by indie developer Ready Wolf. Beautiful Bricks released on Steam November 6th for PC and is priced at €6.59. Beautiful Bricks presents plenty of nostalgia, giving players everything they love about the classics, while also adding plenty of modern twists that bring the genre to a whole new level. Beautiful Bricks isn't just a trip down nostalgia lane, it redefines the Brick Breaker as a genre. In Beautiful Bricks, your objective is to make your way through 32 levels, destroying all the breakable bricks present in each, along with defeating a mid-stage boss and the final boss. This can be done either solo or with up to 3 other players using the mouse, keyboard or controllers. How this works is that each playthrough of Beautiful Bricks generates 32 levels from a pool of 230. What levels will generate will depend on the difficulty setting you're playing. The higher the difficulty, the more difficult the levels the generator will include for that playthrough. The difficulty settings include easy, medium, hard and extreme. Easy is for beginners, where you'll be facing off against relatively easy levels that will help you come to grips with the game's mechanics. Medium is where the game begins to introduce a bit more of a challenge, allowing you to put all the tricks you've learned at that point to the test. Hard ramps up things quite a bit, bringing new levels for more experienced players, while extreme offers a challenge that puts all the game's mechanics to work, giving a real test of the player's skill. There is also a special mode that is possible to unlock called the Master levels, which are a set of levels specifically designed to be the ultimate challenge. The generation of the levels of each playthrough is where the roguelike inspiration of Beautiful Bricks comes into play. Due to the generation of the levels, each and every playthrough is completely different, offering a refreshing experience each time you play. And with the varying difficulty settings, there is consistently new levels being thrown into the mix. It may seem like a strange mechanic to include into a brick breaking game, but it actually works extremely well, adding massive amounts of replayability. It results in no matter how many times you play the game, a playthrough is never going to be the same. So even when you die, your next attempt will be a very different experience to the last. This is something completely new to this style of video game, and it is incredible. Another modern feature that is unique to Beautiful Bricks is the ball physics. In other older games, it was simply a case of keeping the ball in play by ensuring it hits the bat, with the ball getting faster and faster the longer it is in play. Beautiful Bricks works very differently. Here you have control over the ball. When using the mouse, for example, if you hold down the left mouse button, it will make the ball bounce off the bat with more force, allowing it to move quicker along with a further distance and height. If you hold down the right mouse button, it will bring the ball to a very small bouncing movement, allowing you to easily move it from one side of the screen to the other, along with it being great for gaining control or when needing a breather. If not holding down either mouse button, the ball will bounce off the bat at a normal rate. Along with the control of the ball's pacing, you can also make the bat jump into mid-air by double clicking the left mouse button. You can also ram into bricks, breaking them with the bat if you ram into them quick enough. Certain bricks also affect the speed of the ball too. Having such physics and control with the ball adds an element of strategy to the game, with certain levels being designed around this feature. Without using it properly, some of the more challenging levels are extremely difficult to complete without losing at least some lives. This in return adds a layer of complexity to what would otherwise be a simple level design, bringing the whole experience to a new level. Then there are the power-ups. There are over 40 power-ups in Beautiful Bricks, including increasing the size of your bat or making it smaller, the jet, which enables flight, the laser power-up that allows you to shoot lasers, points drop, where points pickups fall from the top of the screen, and power-up drop, where a large number of power-ups drop from the top of the screen, and that is just to name a few. Certain power-ups also grant you unique types of balls, including Ultra Ball, which passes through all breakable bricks, the Heated Ball, which drops small drips of lava that breaks bricks they come in contact with, and the Bomb Ball, which causes an area-wide explosion, destroying any bricks in its blast radius. And that is just a few. The power-ups are all fantastic, and the sheer number of them is incredible. Each power-up adds a new element of tactics to the gameplay, changing how you can deal with each individual level. This is ever more the case with the later, more difficult levels, where the power-ups become ever more useful. Each of the power-ups is all useful in their own right, but it does take some time and practice to master them, and use them to their full potential. Let's move on to the enemies and bosses of the game. While in a level, there is a chance, particularly if a level is taking some time, for enemies to begin spawning in. Each of the different enemy types has its own attacks and behaviour, with some causing more hardship than others. Some will attack by shooting at you from higher up, while others will hover lower, closer to your bat, with slower but more widespread attacks. The enemies are a great little addition that is another nod to Arkanoid. However, unlike in Arkanoid, they aren't a constant pest. Instead, they only spawn in from time to time, as opposed to each time you kill one, another will appear. It results in the breaking of the bricks still being the main focus, as opposed to your focus switching from the bricks to the enemies, which was one of Arkanoid's downfalls. Having enemies like this results in keeping the pace of the game flowing, while adding an additional hazard to the game from time to time. Then there are the bosses of the game. There are 15 bosses in total in Beautiful Bricks. In each playthrough you will face off against 2 bosses, one at the mid stage of a playthrough and one at the end. The bosses are each unique in both their design and how they attack, along with the method needed in order to defeat them. An example of the boss would be the 3 ghosts, which take inspiration from Pac-Man for their design. The ghosts are only vulnerable to your attacks once the light at the top of the screen is turned on. The light is turned on by hitting it with a ball. You then need to hit the ghost as many times as possible while the light is on, and then repeat the process until all of them are defeated. Another example of a boss would be the dragon. The dragon has a weak spot on his stomach, with the spot being highlighted by crossed plasters. Hitting the dragon here will weaken him, leaving him vulnerable for you to then hit his head, with the ball eventually defeating him after repeating the process a few times. Of course, that is just 2 of the more basic bosses. Some of the later and more challenging bosses are very interesting and fun to defeat because of the unique approach to defeating them or their very different attack patterns, but I'm not going to spoil them. The bosses are another clear roguelike inspiration that actually works very well. Not only do they break up the gameplay from the standard formula, but add an additional layer of challenge that gives a sense of progression throughout a playthrough. They each are very cleverly designed and very well implemented into the game, where they don't interfere with what has always made Brick Breakers so appealing and loved. As a whole, the workings of Beautiful Bricks are extremely well designed. The blend of the classic brick breaking gameplay mixed with the modern mechanics and roguelike inspiration combine together to bring an age-old gameplay to a whole new level. Whether you're a newcomer to the Brick Breaker or a veteran, Beautiful Bricks gameplay has something to suit everyone. If there was one thing to mention, it would be that the game can be quite overwhelming, because the game has so many different power-ups and so much going on, all the while the game moving at a fair rate. The first few times you play, you don't really know what's going on half the time. There is just so much to take in all at once, you tend to become overwhelmed by it. This information overload doesn't last long though, and once you begin to understand the mechanics of the game and all the power-ups, everything runs and plays nice and smoothly. Other than that, however, there really isn't anything to complain about. The fun with Beautiful Bricks doesn't end with just the standard playthroughs, however. As you play the game and begin to unlock the achievements, special new game modes too will unlock. These modes include Endless Mode, Boss Rush Mode, Invader Mode and Marathon Mode. Endless Mode pits you against an endless onslaught of randomly generated bricks that you must continue to destroy for as long as possible, gaining the highest score you can in the process. In Boss Rush Mode, you face off against all the bosses, having to defeat them one after another. It's a great mode for getting some practice in with the bosses if you're having some difficulty with figuring them out, all the while being good fun. Invader Mode essentially turns the game into a space shoot 'em up. In this mode, your bat always has the laser power up, and your objective is to destroy all the incoming enemies, to progress to the next wave, with there being 20 waves in total. Marathon Mode has you play through every single level in Beautiful Bricks in sequence, starting from level 1 right up to 230. It is a great addition that allows you to play through every single level of the game one by one, all the while offering a slow increase to the difficulty as you progress. The special game modes add a whole array of new content and playtime to the game, all the while being fun and an absolute joy to play. They're bound to keep you occupied for hours more than the standard game itself already does. Along with the additional modes, there are other unlockables too that grant you new options that change up the gameplay. There are also extras to unlock, such as the visualizer mode that allows you to view all the backgrounds, and the music and sound test that allows you to listen to all the music tracks and sound effects of the game. The additional options are paddle color that allows you to change the color of your bat, maximum firepower, though I'm unsure exactly what this does, hardcore mode, which lowers the number of power-ups dropped and only allows the player to have a maximum of 4 lives at a time, free play, which grants you 50 credits or continues if you prefer, and finally is EPFI, which is every paddle for itself, meaning the balls can't be shared when playing in co-op. The additional options are a nice touch that may not be for everyone, but regardless, they give additional options and modifiers that change up the gameplay for those looking for something a bit different with the game, especially with free play and hardcore mode, which allows for things to either be much easier or much more challenging. It results in there being something for everyone to enjoy. The final thing to discuss is the versus mode. As the name would suggest, this mode pits players against each other, either in matches of 1v1 or 2v2. There are 2 different modes that can be played, which are competitive and volleyball. Competitive mode has 2 teams face off against each other, where the victor is the team who breaks all the bricks first. Alternatively, a round will end upon one of the teams losing their ball, where the other team will gain a point. The game ends upon one of the teams reaching the required amount of points, which can be set to 1, 3, 5 or 10. There are also additional options for the mode, including turning on or off power-ups, and whether the player has normal sized bats spots or tiny ones. Volleyball is exactly as the name suggests, where the two teams compete in a game of volleyball. The objective here is to have the opposing team miss the ball upon it being on their side, where you'll be granted a point. Whichever team gets the required points first wins, with the amount needed being either 5, 10 or 15, which is possible to select through the options menu. Along with that, there are two other options available too, which are birds and weather and rule set. Birds and weather add in new elements to the game. Birds spawn into the game and if hit act as another ball, bringing additional balls for each bird into play. Weather acts as a hazard which can stun your bat if you get hit with it. The rule set changes the rules of the game. Simple rules are as basic as it gets, with the only rule being to attempt to score points by the ball dropping to the ground on your opponent's side of the play area. Advanced rules add in additional rules. One of these rules is only being able to touch the ball with your bat so many times before having to get it over the net. In this case 3 times total. If you don't get it over the net within that limit, the other team receive a point. Serving is also added into the rules, where if the player who is serving loses the ball, they won't lose a point, but the serve will be given to the other player. Essentially, the serve allows the team to start off the round while giving them a lifeline which they will then have to win back if lost. Both modes are great fun to play with a friend or family members, and with each having a number of options to them that change up the gameplay, it allows for things to be mixed up regularly to stop them from becoming boring. However, the problem with the versus mode is that they're in need of polish and do contain certain bugs. For example, in competitive mode, I experienced a case where one of the team's bats and balls kept freezing and wouldn't activate upon starting a round. They would eventually activate again, but it gives the other team an unfair advantage. If it is an intended feature, which right now I'm assuming it isn't, it is a strange design choice and one that I would greatly like to see removed. Then with the volleyball, even if you turn off the birds and weather option, some of the birds will still spawn into the game upon starting the match. But this isn't something that is a major issue like that as a competitive mode problem. Instead, it is just a very minor inconvenience that goes away. Issues aside, however, the versus mode are good fun. That is bound to bring plenty of entertainment and chuckles as friend and family compete against each other, and are a nice change from simply just playing in co-op. So if you're the competitive type, Beautiful Bricks certainly has you covered. The final thing to discuss before wrapping up the gameplay is the achievements. While the game does indeed have in-game achievements, it does not have Steam achievements. I spoke with the developer in regards to this, and unfortunately due to how the game was developed, it is not very compatible with the Steam API, though they did state that if in time they find a solution, they will add them in. As a whole, the gameplay to Beautiful Bricks is fantastic. The roguelike elements with the random level selecting bosses, the sheer number of power-ups and levels, and the modern ball physics combined together create an exhilarating brick-breaking experience that brings the genre to a whole new level. Indeed, it is a bit overwhelming at first, and yes, the versus mode could do with a bit more polish. And while on negatives, another issue that may frustrate some is that it can only be played in full windowed mode, with there being no true full screen mode. Regardless of those issues, Beautiful Bricks is an outstanding game that isn't just a trip down nostalgia lane, but rather a completely modern twist on an age-old formula. The most important element of any brick-breaking game is the level design. You can have as much impressive content as you want, but without good level design, the whole thing will just fall apart. Thankfully, the level design of Beautiful Bricks is fantastic. For the easier and early stage levels, the design is quite standard, consisting of nothing more than normal bricks placed in an easy to navigate design. But as the levels become more difficult, they start to get even more interesting due to the many different types of bricks and how the levels are designed to act. Levels can include warp bricks that teleport your ball from one side of the level to the other. Bricks can contain turrets that shoot at you. Some drop fire upon being broken, while others act as switches that start and stop the bricks from moving around the map. Some levels are specifically designed where the bricks are constantly moving, forcing you to avoid them, or in certain circumstances, master the technique of having to break them using the bat. The developer has added in a whole bunch of modern and interesting mechanics that allow them to let their imagination and creativity run wild, and that is exactly what they did, creating 230 levels of exciting and varied design that will keep you playing for hours on end. If you thought Brick Breaker level design was boring, Beautiful Bricks will definitely change that. The atmosphere of Beautiful Bricks is just fantastic. Between the screen design, which is made to look like an arcade machine, the 8-bit visuals that give the game that retro look and aesthetic, along with an equally as fitting soundtrack which is a blend between the old and the new, everything about the atmosphere encapsulates what Beautiful Bricks is all about. That being the combination of the old and the new to bring an old school inspired game to a modern audience while creating something truly unique and different. And the atmosphere delivers in giving that sense in every regard. When I first started playing Beautiful Bricks, I honestly didn't know what to make of it. I was overwhelmed, confused, and just found it difficult to really get into it at all. But with a bit of time and patience, I began to learn all its workings and understand its mechanics, and that is when the game truly begins to shine. Beautiful Bricks isn't just a modern take on the Brick Breaker. It is an evolution of a genre that has been stubbornly kept the same for decades. It is a game that has redefined the Brick Breaker and proves that with some intelligent design and some neat ideas, even the most basic of video game concepts can evolve into something that you would never think think possible. And with that, I give Beautiful Bricks a 10 out of 10. Beautiful Bricks may have its few issues, but those problems aside, it is a game that all future brick breakers will be judged by. It has set the bar high, and any future games of the genre would really have to pull off something amazing in order to dethrone it, and I don't see that happening anytime soon. If you love brick breaker games, you absolutely must play Beautiful Bricks. I promise you won't be disappointed.